Hey guys, so this is the first time that I've done a video like this. So I wanted to do a video like this for a while now and just share my knowledge and tips with traveling overseas, specifically to attend hard dance events. I'm not a travel agent and I don't claim to be, so a lot of the advice that I'm going to do in this video is just to help and encourage people that might find this sort of thing overwhelming, or to just give it a bit of a solid crack and educate yourselves in the process of traveling and motivate your friends and try to get yourself overseas. Obviously a holiday can be overwhelming to plan, and working out the smaller kinks of getting the process started, especially when you've got a lot of groups and you've got a lot of friends, things to communicate, payments to organise, those sorts of things can be tough to do, especially if there's only one person in control. So there's a lot for you to gain from it yourself personally, and educating yourself on the whole process. So I hope that you can get something out of this video, which I'm going to try and make as easy and as accessible as possible for everyone to understand. So some things that I'll explain in this video: apps to download. So there's a number of different travel apps that you can download to your phone: Kayak, Booking.com, Airbnb, some other things. How to break down the cost of your trip and be prepared to spending money over a daily budget. Some small hacks that can help you: flight laybys, booking free cancellation, Airbnb deposits. And at the end of the video, what I'm going to try and do is explain in probably the most simple terms a dummy DefQon trip on a budget that would consist of 1 week overseas in the Netherlands, attending DefQon, so spending 3 nights in Amsterdam, attending DefQon, and then flying home. So essentially a fly-in, fly-out dummy DefQon trip. So just to give a bit more of an understanding, some of the festivals that I've done overseas: DefQon Netherlands, 2015, 2018, 2019. I've been to DefQon Netherlands 3 times. Dominator, 2015, 2018. Ibiza Goes Hard, 2015. Climax, 2016. Loudness, 2016. Try Before You Die, 2016. Masters of Hardcore Austria, that's 2019. Hard Island, 2019. And Hard Bass, 2019. I've got plans to go back overseas again next year, not to do DefQon, but to do Decibel. So that's the current plan so far. So just a little bit of a heads up as well regarding the trips that I book. So booking trips through travel agents isn't something that I've ever done myself personally. I've done 5 trips to Europe, and I've never once utilized a travel agent to book a trip for me. Every single trip that I've ever booked for myself or for my friends, and I've traveled in groups as large as 8. So the group I traveled to DefQon Netherlands with this year was a group of 8, and I organized the entire trip for everyone through my phone. So didn't use anything with a travel agent. So keep in mind that travel agents are commissioned on what they provide to you. I'm not saying that it's bad to go through a travel agent by any means. Travel agents are good because they'll be able to give you that clarity and that reassurance that what you're getting is genuine, what you're doing is legit. You don't actually have that sort of insurance, or as much of that level of insurance as what you would have if you were booking a trip, just the way that I'm explaining it. So using these apps, but that's part of educating yourself on the process. So if we're looking at breaking down the costs of a trip and being prepared, and this is one of the most important things to consider when it comes to planning a holidays. Most trips or holidays that I organize for myself, I actually usually plan them 6 to 9 months in advance. So ideally, with DefQon being announced, the dates for DefQon being announced this morning, essentially you'd actually want to start trying to get on top of that straight away. If someone says to me, Glenn, how much is it going to cost me to go to DefQon, Hard Island, Dominator, and stay in the Netherlands and bounce between a few countries for 4 weeks, my immediate response would usually be something like 10 to 15 grand is probably what you'd imagine that to fall into. But saying that to someone's going to overwhelm them, it's going to intimidate them. So holidays are about preparation and about organization. And essentially you'd want to aim to have at least 60 to 70% of your trip paid before you leave. And it's very possible with some easy organization and with some easy hacks that I'm going to go through. So breaking down the cost of your trip with preparation and organization. So when I mentioned before the apps that you'd want to download, so you'd want to download Kayak, which is a flight app. So Kayak lists essentially like Booking.com does for accommodation, Kayak does for flights. And you can use it to find your international flights. It sources the cheapest flights that are online, and you can purchase flights through Etihad, Emirates, most airlines using Kayak. The other apps that you want to download is obviously Booking.com, and you'd also want to download Airbnb app as well. So making sure that you've got all those apps is really important. So when you go through starting to plan your trip, you're going to want to get a fair understanding of who's coming with me. Something so important is understanding that if you commit to traveling with a group of friends, you've got to make sure that everyone's all in it and that everyone's committed, because it can create issues in terms of when you're trying to organize money, when you're trying to organize it. Unless everyone's on the same page, it's going to make the trip much harder for you. So start group chats, get yourselves prepared, get yourselves organized early, so that you've got a clear understanding of what you need to do and what you need to achieve to make things happen. So I'll go into some of the best hacks that I know, well, that I've come to learn with regards to traveling. So some of the best hacks that can help you in terms of planning your trip: free cancellation on Booking.com. So free cancellation on Booking.com means that you can actually book accommodation for yourself and your group, and pay the accommodation on arrival. Now, that's really good in some aspects. Essentially, you'd probably want to have most of your accommodation for a trip paid before you leave, but it is really good for those little interval stays where you might be there for just 1 night or 2 nights, or if I guess if your preference is to just try and save as much as you can before you go on the trip. I guess it really depends on your employment, how money works for you. Just remember though that booking under free cancellation on Booking.com does come at a small surcharge. You'll always be able to book it cheaper if you pay it through the non-refundable option. Airbnb deposits, another huge perk as well with regards to accommodation before going on a trip, and one that I'd probably say on every single trip that I use this benefit. So Airbnb actually offers a deposit option, so that you can pay only 40 or 50% of the deposit that's required for the accommodation, and then you can actually pay the remaining part. That wouldn't be it. It actually puts the payment date forward, and you don't actually have to pay it until 2 weeks before you stay at the accommodation. So really good if you're traveling with a bigger, larger group and you want to get one payment done and out of the way, and then you can just start putting aside your money, putting aside your spending money up until that point comes as well. Now this next hack is probably one of the best tricks and the best ways that can change I guess how prepared you are for your holiday. So this hack is a flight lay-by hack. So there are some flight companies or sales centers that do offer options to fly under finance. You definitely don't want to take those options. You don't want to incur debt when you go on a holiday. So you don't want to be taking on board anything that's going to put your credit file at risk. flight laybys do not impact your credit file. So STA Travel, and I believe student flights as well, but I do know STA Travel, they do flight deposits, so essentially flight laybys. So what you can do is you can essentially lock yourself on for your flight that you find, and you pay $99 deposit. Part of that is the lay-by fee, and part of it comes off the total price of your flight. And then you get a unique BPay code relevant to your flight that you can pay off on a weekly, fortnightly, or monthly basis. The only downside to this really good perk is that the flight has to be paid off, I believe, 2 or 3 months before it leaves. So you'd want to, essentially, if you went and did this now for DefQon, if you went and lay-by the flight tomorrow, you'd probably have to have the flights paid off by late March, late April. But I mean, it's fantastic if you want to set yourself up on, $50 to $100 a week and just pay it off as it goes. And I mean, also really good to use that perk for, if you're traveling in a group of 4, 5 or 6 people and it's hard to get those big lump sums out of your group, all of you can go down to an STA Travel together and lay by that option together, and then in your group chats just remind each other, catch each other up on what needs to be paid, and you can just work together to try and get those flights out of the way. So really good perks. So that's STA Travel. They do the flight laybys. So I think what I'll probably go through now, guys, is doing DefQon on a budget. So essentially, if you wanted to do DefQon on a budget, realistically, you could do it from anything between, I'd say maybe $3,500 to maybe $6,000. You could do it. It would depend on your budget. There are so many ways that you can get through a trip with very little money to put aside, and still realistically have a great time. Going to the Netherlands is truly an amazing experience. There's so much to do there. There's so much more to do and embrace and think about than just DefQon alone. DefQon's just the icing on top at the end of it. So I would endeavour, if you do go to the Netherlands, to try and explore as much of it as you can, or stay in central Amsterdam is my recommendation. So with DefQon dates confirmed for June 26th, 27th and 28th. Essentially what you want to do, if you're planning on doing a week-in, week-out trip, you'd want to start organising your, just give me a second, what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to use another phone to show you exactly how it works on the app. Yeah, so with DefQon dates being on the 26th, 27th and 28th, essentially what you'll need to do is that, my recommendation is that you'd want to fly out of Sydney on the Monday the 22nd of June. Essentially you'd want to, if you're looking at just flying in, flying out for DefQon, you'd want to return back to Sydney or back to Melbourne, or I shouldn't say Sydney, my apologies. So back to Melbourne, back to Queensland, or wherever your destination is from. You'd want to set your return for Monday the 29th, or if you're worried about your recovery, maybe stretch it out a day and worry about coming back on the 30th of January. There's a lot that you can do in Amsterdam on the Monday to help with your recovery. I promise you that. So maybe give yourself that extra day. So you want to get your kayak app open. I'm just going to grab another phone so that I can essentially show you how you'd want to go about booking this exactly. Alright guys, so the apps that I mentioned before, Kayak, Booking, Airbnb. So you'd want to go into the Kayak app, and I've already got the dates up, so Monday 22nd of June to Monday 29th of June, Sydney to Amsterdam, and you're going to hit search on the kayak app. So the kayak app is going to organize the flights from what they believe is the best flights, the cheapest flights, the quickest flights. Now, I've flown with 3 different airlines before. I've flown with China Southern, which are these cheap ones that are showing up now, and I've also flown with Etihad and Emirates. Now, in terms of value, Etihad and Emirates are definitely the go-tos. You definitely get what you pay for with Emirates, and they're great airlines. They'll honestly be my recommendation. But I mean, these are the sorts of things I'm referring to where you can cut costs is with China Southern. I've flown with China Southern before. The first time I flew to Europe, I flew with China Southern, and you can get their flights for as little to $1,000, as you can see here, $1,000 to $1,100. Just bear in mind that the transits are a little bit longer than what you would flying to Abu Dhabi or Dubai through Etihad and Emirates. So if I just sort that by cheapest, and we have a look through these flights. So as you start to get towards the more higher priced flights, you'll it's still loading, so unfortunately it hasn't really loaded the Etihad and Emirates flights just yet. So just bear with me for a moment. Okay. So it's still in the China Southern flights. You got to be careful of these transit times as well, because sometimes if you're not careful, you don't want to lock yourself into a 12-hour layover at an airport in China. Alright, so we're venturing like a bit higher up in terms of the price budget. So once you get to the 18, so here we are at the $1,800 mark is where you've got the Etihad flights, and as well as the Etihad flights, you've also got the Emirates flights as well. For some reason they're not showing up just yet, but there they are. So these are the Emirates flights, guys. As I mentioned before, I've flown with Etihad and I've flown with Emirates. Both fantastic airlines. If you're on a budget, honestly, there's really nothing wrong with going for the China Southern flight. So I mean, if that's what's, you know, if looking after costs is something that you want to do, then I'll definitely say that I could recommend it, because when I traveled with them, I didn't really find any issues. So look, that's what I look at doing in terms of your flights, if you're looking at doing fly in, fly out. Now, if we go to accommodation, if we open our booking.com app, now what I've searched is the Flying Pig downtown Amsterdam from Tuesday the 23rd of June, because if you're leaving on the Monday, you're going to land on the Tuesday, up until Friday the 26th of June, because you're going to depart there and leave for DefQon on that day. Now, the reason why I've looked up the Flying Pig downtown Amsterdam is because it's one of the most amazing hostels in Amsterdam that I've ever stayed at. I've stayed at a number of different accommodations in Amsterdam, especially if you're traveling by yourself or with a group of 2 people. It has an awesome vibe. And on top of that, it's incredibly affordable. So I'll just be using the Flying Pig for this example, and I honestly couldn't recommend it anymore. It's such a great hostel at a really good price. So if we have a quick look, so basically what it's saying to us now is that the Flying Pig would cost for 3 nights $446 for 3 nights, but bear in mind that's one bed in, I believe that's for one bed in a 32-person mixed dorm. So I know that some of you probably aren't going to want to sleep in those sorts of conditions, but luckily there's a number of options that you can look at doing. 14-person, you can reduce the number of people you'd share within a hostel down to 6, all female hostels, if you just, obviously if that's what you want, mixed person dormitories. So there's lots of options there, guys, but I'll just use that as an example for now. So Look, that's what I wanted to basically show in terms of the accommodation hacks. I guess the only other thing that I'd have really left to go through is probably just the travel options that at DefQon themselves. So if you just bear with me, I'm going to bring it up. I've already got it open. All right, so the travel options at DefQon. Now, my recommendation for the travel options at DefQon, guys, is probably the comfort camping. Now, I've been to DefQon 3 times, and I've always just stayed in the comfort camping, which is in these cabins here. So in the comfort camping, you've got a number of different accommodation alternatives, such as the safari tents as well, which are these ones here. Just bear with me. So those are the safari tents, 4-person tent. They're great for value as well, and also they've got a number of really cool things in the comfort camping area that would probably appeal to you. Me personally, I would not ever go to DefQon without staying in these cabins. Now, in the comfort camping area, so the cabins, they start from probably about $1,000 per person, close to $1,100 per person. I promise you that they're worth absolutely every single cent. The safari tents are priced close to the same. You can always look at doing a budget option and staying in the normal standard camping area. I think I haven't actually ever stayed in them, so I can't comment with full certainty how much their price range is, but I think it's a little bit less than the comfort camping. I'd guarantee you, guys, that your best option is to look at the deluxe cabins, the deluxe suites, and the safari tents. And stay close to your friends. Those camping areas have the greatest vibe, easier bathrooms to use. I have heard some pretty bad horror stories about long camping lines at the standard camping area. But again, that's what I mean, I guess, when it comes down to considering your budget and thinking about, you know, how much you want to spend. I mean, you could definitely, if you're within your means to not go for the comfort camping, you could go through the travel and stay camping ground packages that are more right for you, and you'll get an idea of those prices when more of them come out on the QDance website shortly. So guys, what you want to do is you want to do, just to run through everything that I just went through for that dummy trip. So booking your international flight, you're looking at about between $1,500 to $2,000, depending on how soon you book it. Remember to use STA Travel, because if you use STA Travel, then you can lay by it and just pay it off at a rate that's affordable for you. Comfort camping, let's look at adding another $1,000 to that. So your budget's hitting close to about $2,500, $3,000 now. Your accommodation, 3 nights at the Flying Pig Hostel, $450. Heading up to about $3,500, I think. Now, spending money. I usually adopt a spending money budget of close to about 180 to 220 Australian dollars per day that I'm overseas, and that converts down to about 100 to 120, 130 euro. You will go through the money fast, especially at DefQon with buying tokens. My honest recommendation that if you're going for a trip for just a fly-in fly at DefQon, then I think a good spending money budget to aim for, if that's all you're doing, is just $300. 300 Australian dollars per day would get you close to about maybe around 220 euro to spend per day. You're going to go through that in Amsterdam, and you're definitely going to go through that with tokens at DefQon and whatnot. Food, everything else, it all starts to add up. But when you look at it, guys, if you had a spending money budget of just $300 per day on this trip, That's only $2,100. So adding all that up together, $2,100 for spending money, $1,000 for the DefQon Comfort Camping. That's just the cabins. Remember, there's cheaper options, so you're up to $3,000. Accommodation, 3 nights at the Flying Pig Hostel, $445, so you're up to $350. And then your international flights, $1,500, $2,000. So there you have it. Your fly-in, fly-out trip to DefQon at the moment has cost you close to about $4,500 to $5,500. There's a lot of different ways that you can do it to make it cheaper, and there's a lot of different ways that you can do to make it work within your budget. Look, that's probably the most that I can offer with regards to this dummy trip. I really hope that this video has helped or given a bit of an insight as to how I would plan my trip. Remember the perks. Remember to be prepared and to be organized. That's the best part about trying to do a trip. Is the more preparation and organization you have, the better that it's going to work out for you in the future. And hopefully, if you get yourself organized now and you get yourself organized, prepared now, then you can see yourself and your friends at DefQon next year.